Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a topic that's probably on the minds of many of you future pharmacists out there.
Especially those in sunny Florida.
Right, especially those in Florida. The MPJE, we're talking about the Florida Multi-State Pharmacy Jurisprudence Examination.
Big one.
It is a big one. And just like a good study session, we're kicking things off with a moment of gratitude.
I like it.
Yeah, studies show starting with a positive mindset can really boost your learning. So what are you thankful for today?
Take a second, even just a breath, to appreciate something good. Okay, ready to dive in?
Absolutely. A positive mindset can make all the difference when it comes to tackling a challenging exam like this one.
Right. So we've got a mountain of documents from the Florida Board of Pharmacy, all about the ins and outs of practicing pharmacy in the Sunshine State. Think of us as your guides, helping you navigate these regulations and highlighting the must-know nuggets for the MPJE.
These documents, especially Chapter 465 of the Florida statutes, are like the rule book for pharmacy practice in Florida.
Yeah, the Pharmacy Bible. Exactly. They cover everything from getting your license to the very specific duties you can perform as a pharmacist.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Florida Pharmacy Law Fundamentals. What's the deal with the Board of Pharmacy? What kind of power do they have?
The Board of Pharmacy, they're a pretty powerful entity. They set the rules, conduct inspections, and basically make sure everyone is playing by the book when it comes to pharmacy practice.
Keeping everyone in line.
Exactly. What's really interesting is they're constantly meeting, board meetings, committee meetings, even workshops.
Wow.
And all of those meetings are officially documented and part of public record.
Wait, so anyone can attend these meetings?
That's right.
That's kind of cool. You can actually see how pharmacy regulations are made and enforced.
Exactly. It's a great way to get a behind-the-scenes look at the regulatory process.
All right, let's move on to a topic that's probably top of mind for many of you licensures. What types of pharmacist licenses are there in Florida?
You've got your standard pharmacist license, which is what most people are aiming for. But then you've also got specialized licenses, like the consultant pharmacist license for those working in institutional settings, like hospitals and long-term care facilities.
And there's even a license for nuclear pharmacists, right?
You got it.
Those are the folks who work with radioactive materials. That's a pretty specialized area.
That's right. Florida recognizes the unique expertise needed to work with radioactive drugs, so these pharmacists need a specific license beyond the regular one.
So you can't just be a regular pharmacist and dabble in nuclear pharmacy.
Yeah, nope, not in Florida.
Wow. It's a fascinating and crucial niche within the field.
It is.
So every pharmacist needs to renew their license,
Mm-hmm.
and that involves continuing education, right? What are the requirements for that?
You got it. Each license type has its own set of continuing education requirements. For regular pharmacists, you're looking at 30 hours every 2 years.
Okay.
And for nuclear pharmacists, because of their specialized work, they need an additional 24 hours on top of that.
Wow, that's a lot of learning. You know, one thing that caught my eye in the documents is that a portion of the required continuing education covers HIV/AIDS, including Florida law. That seems pretty specific.
It really underscores the intersection of healthcare and law. Pharmacists need to stay up to date on the legal and ethical considerations surrounding sensitive health issues like HIV/AIDS. They're on the front lines of patient care after all.
That makes sense. And here's a quick tip for all you future pharmacists out there. Community service can actually count toward your continuing education hours if it's approved by the board.
That's right.
So you can give back to your community and get closer to license renewal at the same time.
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
Okay, time for a quick pop quiz to test your knowledge. How many continuing education hours does a regular pharmacist in Florida need every 2 years? Think you know the answer. Just kidding. No breaks on the deep dive. The answer is 30 hours. Make sure you remember that number. It's a classic MPJE question. Now let's get into what you can actually do as a licensed pharmacist in Florida. It's more than just dispensing prescriptions, right?
You're absolutely right. The scope of practice for pharmacists in Florida has expanded quite a bit in recent years.
Like, I was surprised to learn that pharmacists can administer certain vaccines. I didn't realize that was part of their role.
It's true. Pharmacists who have completed a certification program and have a supervising physician can administer a range of vaccines.
Okay.
It's all about expanding access to healthcare and utilizing pharmacists' knowledge and skills to their fullest potential.
And they can even administer those long-acting antipsychotic medications by injection, right?
That's right, but there are very specific requirements. They need a protocol with the prescribing physician and have to complete a specialized course before they can administer these injections.
Oh, wow.
It's not something they take lightly.
Right. Those are some pretty powerful drugs.
Eh,
It demonstrates the high level of trust and responsibility placed on Florida pharmacists.
it does.
There's also this interesting concept of ordering and dispensing that pharmacists can do in certain situations. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. Ordering and dispensing is a provision in Florida law that allows pharmacists to provide certain medications without a traditional prescription.
Really?
Think of it as a way for pharmacists to act as more direct healthcare providers for specific, often minor conditions.
So it's like a mini clinic right there in the pharmacy.
Exactly.
What kind of medications are we talking about?
The Board of Pharmacy has a specific list of eligible medications, ranging from certain pain relievers to antifungal medications.
Okay.
It's definitely worth familiarizing yourself with that list for the MPJE.
Imagine a patient comes in with a minor issue, and you, as the pharmacist, can assess the situation and provide the right medication right then and there. That's pretty empowering, right?
Absolutely. It's a great example of how the role of the pharmacist is evolving to meet the changing needs of patients and the healthcare system.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about prescriptions. What are the must-have elements on a Florida prescription? You know, the things you absolutely need to check before dispensing?
It's all about the details. You've got your basic patient information, the drug name, dosage, directions for use, and the prescriber's information. But then there are also specific requirements for controlled substances, like limitations on refills for Schedule II and Schedule III drugs. Those are the ones with a higher potential for abuse.
Right. And I remember reading something about how if a doctor wants to withhold the drug name on a prescription, which is rare, but it can happen, the pharmacist is legally obligated to follow that request.
That's right.
That's all about protecting patient privacy.
Exactly. It highlights the ethical and legal considerations pharmacists have to navigate daily.
Now, once you've dispensed those medications, what comes next?
Counseling, of course.
Right. I bet most people don't realize that Florida law actually mandates patient counseling for both new and refill prescriptions.
It's not just a good practice, it's a legal requirement. Pharmacists need to make sure patients understand the basics of their medication, what it's for, how to take it, potential side effects, and possible interactions with other medications or foods.
It's all about making sure patients are informed and empowered to take their medications safely and effectively.
Exactly. And beyond basic counseling, there's also drug therapy management. In Florida, pharmacists can collaborate with doctors to manage a patient's medications more directly.
That's a pretty big responsibility, isn't it?
It is. It really speaks to the level of trust and expertise that pharmacists bring to the table.
Speaking of expertise, let's talk about compounding. That's where pharmacists prepare customized medications for individual patients, right?
That's right. And Florida has some very specific rules for compounding sterile products, especially when it comes to things like clean rooms, air quality, and rigorous testing.
Why are the regulations so strict for sterile compounding?
Sterile products go directly into the body, so any contamination could be extremely dangerous. Patient safety is the top priority.
But here's an interesting quirk I came across. Reconstituting a commercially available product, like mixing a powder with liquid according to the manufacturer's instructions, isn't actually considered compounding in Florida.
That's a great point. It's one of those little nuances in the rules that often trips people up on the MPJE, so it's definitely worth remembering.
Okay, we're about to enter the realm of controlled substances. Everyone take a deep breath. These are highly regulated everywhere, and Florida is no exception.
You got that right. When it comes to controlled substances, record keeping is absolutely crucial. You need to track every single transaction from the moment a controlled substance enters the pharmacy to when it leaves. No exceptions.
What happens to those records if a pharmacy closes or changes ownership?
Those controlled substance records need to be transferred very carefully and according to a specific set of rules. There's no room for error when it comes to these medications.
It makes sense. The potential for misuse or diversion is high with controlled substances. So these strict tracking measures are in place to keep everything above board and ensure patient safety. Okay, listeners, time for another pop quiz question. What's the absolute most important thing to remember when handling controlled substances in a Florida pharmacy? Think about it for a second. The answer is coming up right after. Well, you know the drill. No breaks on the deep dive. The answer is meticulous record keeping. Every single transaction needs to be documented. No exceptions. All right, let's talk about what it takes to actually run a pharmacy in Florida. You've aced the MPJE, you're licensed, you're ready to go. What's next?
Next comes getting the proper permits to operate a pharmacy in Florida.
And I bet it's not as simple as just getting a single permit.
You're right about that. There are different types of permits depending on what kind of pharmacy you want to open, community, institutional, specialty. Each one comes with its own set of rules and regulations about staffing facilities, security record keeping.
It sounds like running a pharmacy is a whole business operation on top of being a healthcare provider.
It definitely is. It's important to be aware of all the legal and operational requirements before you even think about opening your doors.
I was looking through the documents and came across something I found interesting. There are even specific permits for animal shelters that use controlled substances for euthanasia.
That's right.
That's a great example of how pharmacy regulations extend beyond human healthcare. It's a broad field with a lot of different applications.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about the less fun stuff, disciplinary actions. What happens if you break a pharmacy rule in Florida?
The Board of Pharmacy takes rule violations very seriously. They have a whole system of penalties, from fines and license suspensions to even license revocation for the most serious offenses. It's definitely worth looking at the specific violations and their corresponding penalties to understand what the board considers most important.
Like, I read that not keeping your continuing education records up to date could lead to a hefty fine and even a license suspension.
That's right. Staying on top of those requirements is essential for maintaining your license and your career as a pharmacist.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've touched on pharmacy law, licensure, pharmacist duties, prescription requirements, counseling, dispensing, record keeping, compounding controlled substances, and even the operational side of running a pharmacy. We've even thrown in a few pop quiz questions to keep you on your toes.
And this is just a taste of what you need to know to conquer the MPJE. Now it's your turn to dive deeper into those Board of Pharmacy documents and really get comfortable with the material.
And before we wrap up this part, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow pharmacy students. Let's help each other succeed. And one final thought to ponder. We covered a lot of the what today, but think about the why behind each of these regulations. What are they designed to protect? How do they impact both patients and pharmacists? Keeping those questions in mind as you study will deepen your understanding and prepare you to face any challenge the MPJE throws your way. Good luck, everyone.
Best of luck. You know, thinking about those disciplinary actions, it really emphasizes how crucial it is to understand the specific duties and limitations of a pharmacist's role in Florida.
You're right. It's not enough to just know the rules. You have to understand the reasoning behind them.
Exactly. So let's dig a little deeper into the scope of practice for pharmacists in Florida. We've already talked about vaccines and long-acting antipsychotics, but there's even more to explore.
I remember reading something about pharmacists being able to prescribe certain medications in Florida. But I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Can you break that down for us?
You're likely thinking about collaborative practice agreements, which are a big part of the MPJE. In Florida, pharmacists can enter into these agreements with authorized physicians, allowing them to manage specific patient medications and even modify prescriptions within the agreed-upon parameters.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Okay.
So it's not just about filling prescriptions anymore. Pharmacists are becoming more involved in direct patient care.
Exactly. It's all about providing comprehensive, patient-centered care. And speaking of patient care, let's talk about counseling.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier, but it's so important that it deserves a deeper dive.
You mentioned that Florida law mandates counseling for both new and refill prescriptions. What exactly does that entail?
It means pharmacists have to make a reasonable effort to communicate with patients about their medications.
Right.
We're talking about providing information about the drug itself, how to take it properly, potential side effects to watch out for, and any possible interactions with other medications, food, or even certain activities.
So it's not just about handing over a bottle of pills and sending the patient on their way. It's about ensuring they understand their medication and feel comfortable taking it.
Absolutely. It's about empowering patients to take an active role in their own health. And, effective counseling can actually help improve patient adherence to their medication regimen. That's a win for everyone.
Something that stands out to me is that counseling is required for refill prescriptions, too. I wonder why that is.
It's a great question, and it highlights the fact that a patient's situation can change over time.
Oh.
Their health condition might evolve, they might start taking new medications or supplements, their lifestyle might change. All of these factors can impact how a medication works for them.
So even if a patient has been taking medication for a while, it's still important to check in and make sure everything is still going smoothly.
Exactly. It's about providing ongoing support and ensuring the medication is still the right fit for the patient. And, sometimes just taking a few minutes to talk to a patient can uncover potential issues or concerns they might not have even thought to mention otherwise.
That's a good point. It's about building a relationship with patients and fostering trust. Now let's switch gears and talk about record keeping.
Okay.
It's one of those things that might not be the most exciting topic, but it's absolutely crucial for pharmacists.
You got it. Record keeping is like the backbone of pharmacy practice. It's essential for patient safety, legal compliance, and even business operations.
So what kinds of records do pharmacists need to keep in Florida?
We're talking about everything from prescription records and dispensing logs to inventory records for controlled substances and even documentation of patient counseling.
It sounds like a lot of paperwork.
It can be, but it's all for a good reason. Accurate and complete records help ensure the right medications are dispensed to the right patients, prevent errors, and provide a trail of accountability if something goes wrong.
And what about electronic records? Are those allowed in Florida?
Absolutely. Electronic record-keeping systems are becoming the norm in pharmacies across the country, including Florida.
Yeah.
They can really streamline operations and improve efficiency, but they also come with their own set of regulations and security requirements.
Speaking of security, what are some of the specific security measures pharmacies need to have in place for controlled substances?
Security is paramount when it comes to controlled substances. We're talking about things like secure storage areas, limited access to those areas, and comprehensive inventory tracking systems. And let's not forget about those pesky theft and loss reporting requirements. If a controlled substance goes missing, you have to report it immediately to the proper authorities.
That makes sense. Those medications have a high potential for misuse and diversion, so it's crucial to keep them under tight control.
And speaking of controlled substances, let's talk about the different schedules, Schedule A, Schedule 2, and so on. Why are they categorized that way?
The different schedules are based on the drug's potential for abuse and its accepted medical use in the United States. Schedule I's drugs are considered to have the highest potential for abuse and no currently accepted medical use. Think heroin and LSD.
So you won't find those in a pharmacy.
Not legally, anyway. Schedule II drugs also have a high potential for abuse, but they do have accepted medical uses. We're talking about medications like oxycodone, fentanyl, and amphetamines. Those are some serious medications. They're tightly controlled for a reason. What about the other schedules?
As you go down the schedule list, the potential for abuse generally decreases. Schedule 3 drugs include things like codeine with acetaminophen and anabolic steroids. Schedule 4 includes medications like benzodiazepines, and Schedule V includes things like cough syrups with low doses of codeine.
So it's a sliding scale based on risk and medical use. And knowing those schedules is definitely going to come in handy on the MPJE.
You bet. There are often questions about the specific requirements for dispensing and prescribing controlled substances based on their schedule.
Okay, let's talk about another important aspect of pharmacy practice, dispensing errors. What are some common types of errors and how can pharmacists prevent them?
Dispensing errors are unfortunately a reality in pharmacy practice.
It happened.
But the good news is that most errors are preventable.
Okay.
Some common types of errors include dispensing the wrong medication, the wrong strength, or the wrong quantity. It can also involve incorrect labeling or providing inadequate counseling to the patient.
It sounds like a lot of those errors could be due to simple human mistakes, like distractions or rushing.
You're absolutely right. Pharmacies can be busy environments, and it's easy to get overwhelmed or make a careless mistake. That's why it's so important to have systems in place to double-check everything before dispensing a medication. Think things like barcode scanning, independent verification by another pharmacist, and even using technology like automated dispensing systems.
And what about those times when a mistake does happen?
Yeah.
What's the best course of action?
If you catch a dispensing error, the most important thing is to address it immediately.
Okay.
Correct. The error, notify the patient, and document everything that happened. Transparency and accountability are key. And depending on the severity of the error, you may also need to report it to the Board of Pharmacy.
That sounds like a good policy. Own up to the mistake, fix it, and learn from it.
Exactly. It's all about continuous improvement and striving to provide the safest and most effective care possible.
We've talked a lot about the responsibilities and potential pitfalls of pharmacy practice, but let's not forget about the rewards. What are some of the things that make this profession so fulfilling?
Being a pharmacist is about so much more than just dispensing medications. It's about being a valuable resource for patients, helping them navigate their health conditions and medication regimens. It's about building relationships and making a real difference in people's lives. And it's a constantly evolving field with new medications, technologies, and opportunities emerging all the time.
It's a challenging profession, no doubt,
Yeah.
but it's also incredibly rewarding. And for those of you prepping for the MPJE, just remember that all this hard work is leading you toward a career that can truly make a positive impact.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Now, are you ready for another pop quiz question?
Bring it on.
Okay, here it is. Which of the following is not a key element of effective patient counseling? Is it A, providing information about the medication's purpose, B, explaining potential side effects, C, discussing storage requirements, or D, recommending a specific brand of over-the-counter medication? Take a moment to think about it.
While you're pondering that question, let's take a quick moment to no breaks on the deep dive.
That's right, we're diving straight into the answer. The correct answer is D, recommending a specific brand of over-the-counter medication. While pharmacists can certainly provide information about over-the-counter options, it's generally not within their scope of practice to recommend a particular brand. That decision should be left up to the patient in consultation with their healthcare provider.
Makes sense. And, this question really highlights the importance of understanding the boundaries of a pharmacist's role. It's not just about knowing what you can do, but also what you shouldn't do.
Absolutely. It's all about practicing ethically and responsibly.
Speaking of ethics, let's talk about some of the ethical considerations that pharmacists might encounter in their practice.
Ethical dilemmas are a part of many professions, and pharmacy is no exception. Pharmacists often have to balance patient needs with legal and professional obligations.
Can you give us an example of a situation where a pharmacist might face an ethical dilemma?
Sure. Imagine a situation where a patient comes in with a prescription for a medication that you know has a high potential for abuse. You've also noticed that this patient has been getting prescriptions from multiple doctors. What do? On the one hand, you have a legal obligation to fill valid prescriptions. On the other hand, you have a professional and ethical responsibility to protect patient safety and prevent drug diversion.
That's a tough one. It's not always black and white.
Exactly. There's often a gray area, and pharmacists have to use their judgment and knowledge to make the best decision in each unique situation.
So how does a pharmacist even begin to approach an ethical dilemma like that?
There are several steps you can take. First, gather all the relevant information. Talk to the patient, review their prescription history, and if necessary, consult with the prescribing physician. Then consider the potential risks and benefits of different courses of action. Think about the legal and ethical implications of each option. And if you're still unsure, don't be afraid to reach out for guidance, talk to a colleague, a mentor, or even the board of pharmacy.
It sounds like open communication is key.
Absolutely. And remember, you're not alone. Every pharmacist faces ethical challenges at some point in their career.
That's reassuring to hear. Now let's talk about a specific type of medication that often presents ethical considerations: opioids.
Opioids are a class of powerful pain relievers that have a high potential for abuse and addiction. They've become a major public health concern in recent years.
So how are pharmacists on the front lines of addressing the opioid epidemic?
They play a crucial role in preventing opioid misuse and diversion. They're responsible for verifying prescriptions, checking for potential red flags like doctor shopping or forged prescriptions, and counseling patients on the safe and appropriate use of these medications.
So it's not just about filling the prescription, it's about being vigilant and ensuring these medications are used responsibly.
Exactly. And in Florida, pharmacists have an additional tool to help combat opioid misuse, the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, or PDMP.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. The PDMP is an electronic database that tracks all controlled substance prescriptions dispensed in the state. Pharmacists are required to check the PDMP before dispensing certain controlled substances, including opioids.
So they can see a patient's prescription history and identify any potential issues like overlapping prescriptions or getting medications from multiple doctors.
Exactly. It's a valuable tool for identifying potential red flags and preventing drug diversion.
Thinking about all these regulations and responsibilities, it makes you realize how seriously Florida takes pharmacy practice. It's not just about handing out pills. It's about protecting public health and ensuring patient safety.
You got it. Pharmacy is a highly regulated field for a reason. And understanding those regulations inside and out is essential for anyone who wants to practice pharmacy in the Sunshine State.
Okay, listeners, time for another pop quiz question to test your knowledge of Florida pharmacy law. What is the primary purpose of the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program in Florida? Is it A, to track the sales of over-the-counter medications, B, to monitor the prescribing habits of physicians, C, to prevent the diversion and misuse of controlled substances, or D, to regulate the pricing of prescription drugs? Think carefully before you answer.
While you're pondering that question, let's delve into, just kidding, no breaks on the deep dive. The correct answer is C, to prevent the diversion and misuse of controlled substances. The PDMP is a vital tool in the fight against opioid misuse and other forms of drug diversion.
It's all about protecting patients and ensuring these powerful medications are used safely and appropriately. All right, let's shift gears and talk about something a little lighter, pharmacy advertising.
Advertising, that's an interesting topic.
I know, right? It might not seem directly related to patient care, but there are actually regulations surrounding pharmacy advertising in Florida.
Of course. It's important to ensure that pharmacy advertising is truthful and doesn't mislead consumers.
So what are some of the key things to keep in mind when it comes to advertising pharmacy services?
The big one is accuracy. Any claims made in advertising must be truthful and substantiated. You can't make false or misleading statements about your services prices or the medications you dispense.
So no promising miracle cures or unrealistically low prices.
Exactly. And you also can't use testimonials or endorsements that are deceptive or misleading. It's all about being transparent and honest with consumers.
What about advertising controlled substances? Are there any specific restrictions there?
You bet. Advertising controlled substances is a sensitive issue. Florida law prohibits pharmacies from advertising controlled substances to the general public. These medications have a high potential for abuse, so it's important to prevent any advertising that might encourage inappropriate use.
So those flashy ads for pain relief medications you see on TV, those wouldn't fly in Florida.
No, pharmacies have to be very careful when advertising any medications, especially controlled substances. It's all about promoting responsible use and protecting public health.
All right, let's move on to a topic that's particularly relevant for those of you who are thinking about opening your own pharmacy ownership. Are there any specific requirements in Florida?
You bet. Florida law has very specific requirements for pharmacy ownership. In fact, only pharmacists can own pharmacies in the state.
So no business moguls or venture capitalists swooping in to take over the pharmacy world?
Not in Florida. The law is designed to ensure that pharmacies are owned and operated by individuals who have the necessary knowledge and expertise to safeguard patient safety and uphold ethical standards.
That makes sense. It's about putting patient care first. But what if a pharmacist wants to partner with someone who isn't a pharmacist? Is that allowed?
It depends. While non-pharmacists can't be majority owners, they can be minority partners in a pharmacy business. However, there are strict regulations regarding their involvement in the day-to-day operations and decision-making processes.
So it's not a completely closed door to non-pharmacists, but their involvement is carefully controlled.
Exactly. The ultimate responsibility for patient care and pharmacy operations rests with the licensed pharmacist.
And what about those big chain pharmacies? Are those allowed in Florida?
Of course, chain pharmacies are a common sight in Florida, just like in most states. However, even chain pharmacies in Florida have to comply with the state's strict ownership requirements. Each individual pharmacy location must have a designated pharmacist in charge who is ultimately responsible for that location's operations.
So even in a big corporation, the buck stops with the pharmacist.
That's right. And that highlights the importance of professional accountability and the crucial role pharmacists play in ensuring safe and ethical pharmacy practice.
Okay, listeners, time for another pop quiz question. According to Florida law, who is allowed to be a majority owner of a pharmacy? Is it A, a physician, B, a business entrepreneur, C, a licensed pharmacist, or D, a registered nurse?
Tough one. While you're pondering that, just kidding. The correct answer is C, a licensed pharmacist. Only pharmacists can have majority ownership of a pharmacy in Florida. It's all about maintaining professional control over pharmacy practice and ensuring that patient care is always the top priority.
You know, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but there's still so much more to explore. The world of pharmacy law is vast and complex, but it's also incredibly fascinating.
It's a constantly evolving field, and staying up to date on the latest regulations is essential for any pharmacist, especially those of you who are preparing for the MPJE.
So what's the best way to stay on top of all these changes and make sure you're ready to conquer the exam?
The key is to be proactive. Read industry publications, attend continuing education courses, and of course, listen to insightful podcasts like The Deep Dive.
Now you're just stroking my ego. But seriously, folks, staying informed is crucial. The more you know, the better prepared you'll be to face any challenge that comes your way. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow pharmacy students. Let's help each other succeed. Now let's dive into the next fascinating aspect of Florida pharmacy law. All right, let's talk about telehealth.
Okay.
It's become such a big part of healthcare, especially since the pandemic. How does telehealth fit into the world of Florida pharmacy law?
Telehealth is definitely changing the way healthcare is delivered, and pharmacy is no exception. Florida has specific rules in place to ensure that telehealth services, including those involving pharmacies, are provided safely and effectively.
So what are some of the key things pharmacists need to know about telehealth in Florida?
Well, for starters, any pharmacist providing telehealth services needs to be licensed in Florida.
Exactly.
That's a given. And just like with in-person practice, pharmacists have to maintain patient confidentiality and adhere to all the relevant privacy regulations.
That makes sense. The same rules should apply whether you're interacting with a patient face-to-face or through a video call.
Exactly. And when it comes to prescriptions, pharmacists need to make sure they're only dispensing medications based on valid prescriptions issued by authorized practitioners.
Okay.
Telehealth doesn't change that fundamental requirement.
What about controlled substances? Can those be prescribed via telehealth in Florida?
That's a tricky one.
I bet.
The rules surrounding telehealth prescribing of controlled substances are constantly evolving.
Right.
In some cases, it might be allowed, but there are often additional restrictions and requirements in place.
So there's definitely an area where pharmacists need to stay up to date on the latest regulations.
Absolutely. Things are changing rapidly in the world of telehealth, and it's crucial for pharmacists to be aware of the current rules and best practices.
Thinking about all these different aspects of Florida pharmacy law, it's clear that this is a profession with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But it also seems like there are a lot of opportunities to make a real difference in people's lives.
You hit the nail on the head. Pharmacy is a demanding profession, but it's also incredibly rewarding. You have the chance to be a trusted healthcare professional to help people manage their medications safely and effectively, and to truly make a positive impact on their health and well-being.
And for those of you out there who are working hard to prepare for the MPJE, remember that this exam is just one step on your journey toward a fulfilling career in pharmacy.
That's right. The MPJE might seem daunting now, but with dedication and the right resources, you can conquer it.
And you know what? We're here to help. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but this is just the beginning. We encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
And don't forget to check out those Board of Pharmacy documents. They're the ultimate source of truth when it comes to Florida pharmacy law.
It's exactly. Those documents might seem a bit dry at first, but trust us, they're full of fascinating insights and crucial information that will help you succeed on the MPJE and beyond.
And speaking of succeeding, what do you say we wrap up this deep dive with one final pop quiz question?
I'm game if you are. Hit us with your best shot.
Okay, here it is. Which of the following is a key responsibility of the Florida Board of Pharmacy? Is it A, setting the prices of prescription medications? B, approving new drug applications? C, regulating the practice of pharmacy in the state? Or D, providing financial assistance to pharmacy students? Think carefully before you answer.
This one's a real brain teaser. While you're pondering that, we're going to take a quick break to... Just kidding. You know how we roll here on the Deep Dive No Breaks?
That's right. We're diving straight to the answer. The correct answer is C, regulating the practice of pharmacy in the state. The Board of Pharmacy is the governing body that sets the rules, issues licenses, conducts inspections, and enforces disciplinary actions to ensure that pharmacy practice in Florida is safe, ethical, and meets the highest professional standards.
They're the guardians of pharmacy in the Sunshine State. And, this question really highlights the importance of understanding the role of the Board of Pharmacy. They're not just some faceless bureaucracy. They're the ones who set the standards and ensure that pharmacists are practicing responsibly.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are prepping for the MPJE, make sure you pay close attention to anything related to the Board of Pharmacy. Their rules and regulations are a big part of the exam.
Well, there you have it, folks. We've completed our deep dive into the world of Florida pharmacy law. We've covered a lot of ground, from the basics of licensure to the complexities of controlled substances, from the importance of patient counseling to the ethical considerations that pharmacists face every day.
We've explored the evolving role of the pharmacist, the challenges and rewards of the profession, and the ever-changing landscape of pharmacy regulations.
We've thrown in a few pop quiz questions to keep you on your toes and hopefully helped you solidify some of the key concepts you'll need to know for the MPJE.
And most importantly, we've tried to make this complex and sometimes daunting topic a little bit more accessible and even, dare we say, a little bit fun.
We're all about making learning engaging and enjoyable. And remember, folks, this is just the beginning of your journey into the world of pharmacy law. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover.
And as you continue your studies and prepare for the MPJE, we encourage you to keep digging, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep that positive mindset. You got this.
That's right. We believe in you. And before we sign off, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow pharmacy students. Let's help each other succeed. And remember, folks, you're not just studying for an exam. You're preparing for a career that can truly make a difference in people's lives. So go out there and make us proud.
Best of luck on the MPJE, everyone.